Hi, my name is John Bell. I'm the pastor of Crossway Multinational Church. And I want to tell you a very brief way to tell our history as a church. From the beginning, we were a church that longed to welcome and transform the peoples from many nations to be united in the praise of God and Christ. One way we talk about that is to be a church that is for, of, and by the peoples of many nations. In the early days in our church, the emphasis that we had was on many nations. To emphasize people who've grown up in different settings and different contexts with different languages and coming together as a single people, not as a group of people who were the primary influencers and those were secondary, but all together to shape who we are as a church. Wonderful, rich time over several years living with that strong focus. And then with the murder of George Floyd, it helped us to see the significance of focusing on the peoples of many nations. The S on peoples is so important. In any nation, there's not one people group, but many. And we take seriously the differences in the experiences and perspectives of the different groups within a single nation. And as the murder of George Floyd helped us to see, within the United States context, there are very different experiences by different groups of people. And we want to welcome and be shaped by peoples within the U.S. and in any country, recognizing there are both, there are things that shape us as a country, and there are things that shape subsets of people within any country or crossing across the boundaries of people. And then we wrestled with the pandemic and what it is to be a community of people when we are not allowed or not able to gather together physically. How do we pursue community when we have such restrictions? And now as we move into what might be called an endemic state, where at any point in time, health issues and risks might make it hard for us to gather physically. What does it look like to embrace this new reality, to give us freedom to gather in different ways, and yet continue to pursue a richness of community that means we are deeply known and we know each other and we walk together in community. And more recently, as a church, we've been wrestling more with this question of what it means to be by the peoples of many nations, to be shaped, to be led by people from all the different backgrounds that are among us. We have discovered that one way to frame this issue is who gets to decide what is normal. When you shop in a grocery store, for instance, in the United States, you can find food that doesn't have a particular label on it, and then there are aisles in the grocery store that are for ethnic foods or for international foods. And the question is, who decides what is ethnic food and what is international food and what goes without a label? And so we realize that this is something we have to wrestle with. For me being the lead pastor as a white American male, I'm not neutral. There are parts of my own story that can easily become what's considered normal for us as a church. And yet we don't want to do that. We want to try to figure out how there's not one group that's normal and then others bring variations. So how do we do this? And we're in the midst of this journey, learning what it is like to have the open conversation about what should be considered normal among us. What are the variations, or what are the multiple starting points? And we join together in figuring out where we go. And so the journey will continue. We know that. We want to be like the early church, where rather than deciding, they would have separate churches, a Jewish church and a Gentile church, but to have a single church. We want to join together in that way as well, believing that when we form a church across these differences, it will be a richer experience. We will be protected from ways in which we might go astray individually. We will be stronger because of the diversity of the peoples in Christ among us.